A new report from the Department of Justice shows some shocking assessments of the police department and city in Lexington, Mississippi. Goes to show there are parts of America that still need a lot of work. Again, Kristen Clark, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, made these comments in Mississippi on Thursday. Quote, we find reasonable cause to believe the Lexington Police Department and City of Lexington engage in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendments. Specifically, we find the Lexington police use excessive force, unlawfully stop, search, and arrest people, including jailing people on illegal investigative holds, unlawfully jail people without affording prompt access to court, violate the rights of people who engage in free speech and expression, including by retaliating against critics of the police, and unlawfully discriminate against black people. The department also unlawfully arrests, jails, and detains people based on their failure to pay money without assessing their ability to pay, unlawfully arrests people just because they owe outstanding fines, and imposes money bail without justification, and again without assessing ability to pay. The fact that the fines and fees found in the department drives its law enforcement, resulting in a crude policing for policy profit scheme. Lexington Police Department operates under an unconstitutional financial conflict of interest. Lexington's focus on revenue and its overly aggressive form of policing leaves the people of Lexington harassed, feeling helpless and hopeless. For example, on the day we opened our investigation, Lexington officers chased a man down and tased him until he foamed at the mouth. In the previous months, police officers had repeatedly arrested the man for minor offenses. Most police departments would have handled with a ticket. For stealing sugar packets from a gas station, the man spent 13 days in jail. He spent 4 days in jail for taking a second cup of coffee after paying for the first. Each time, the Lexington Police Department kept him in jail because he could not afford to pay the fines or the $50 processing fee Lexington charges for every arrest. Especially for a person in poverty, these fines are no small thing. Even though he has no money, the man owes the Lexington Police Department over $7,500. At no point did the police or city assess his ability to pay those fines. In America, being poor is not a crime, but in Lexington, their practices punish people for poverty. On February 29th, we provided official notice to Lexington city officials and the police department about our concerns regarding illegal arrests and detentions that penalize people for lacking resources. Lexington has made some changes in response to our notice, but as today's findings show, more meaningful reform is necessary. Lexington fines and fees have been absolutely devastating for the people who live here. Although Lexington is one of the poorest counties in America, people owe the police department $1.7 million in outstanding fines. The Lexington Municipal Court has issued bench warrants for over 650 people based on unpaid fines, equivalent to roughly half of Lexington's population. Based on these warrants, police officers have unlawfully arrested and jailed people using the leverage of incarceration to extract more money from them. Other times, the Lexington police will send people to jail for days or weeks for minor offenses. These people wait in jail until they can go before a judge or they can get enough money together to pay their fines. This, too, violates people's civil rights. For example, the Lexington police arrested a black man for allegedly taking $15 worth of gas. Police told him the fine was $300. He couldn't pay it. The police sent him to jail until the next scheduled court date 2 weeks later. Unjustly enforcing fines and fees creates a two-tiered system of justice that can perpetuate a cycle of poverty. It also fuels a financial conflict of interest for the police department. The police must enforce laws even-handedly, not based on generating revenue. Lexington, though it focused its law enforcement strategies that generated income, even at times linking officers' paychecks to the number of arrests they made. Over the past 2 years, Lexington has made nearly one arrest for every 4 people in town, more than 10 times the per capita arrest rate for Mississippi. Lexington police also illegally arrest people for using profanity, and they retaliate against people who film officers or criticize the police. The First Amendment protects swearing, yet the Lexington police broke down a man's back door and arrested him for swearing in a public place. The First Amendment also protects the right to film or criticize officers. But when a man filmed officers approaching his suicidal brother with their guns raised, a police officer batted the man's phone out of his hand, pushed him to the ground, and arrested him. While making arrests, Lexington police frequently use excessive force. We found instances in which officers used a taser like a cattle prod to punish people or to make them comply more quickly with officers' orders. For example, officers used a taser to shock a black man 18 times until he was covered in his own vomit and unable to speak or walk. Officers punch, hit, or kick people who are unarmed and handcuffed. One officer kicked a black man in the groin so hard he wet himself. Another used his gun to repeatedly hit a black man already in handcuffs. Another officer knocked an elderly black man unconscious. Nor are children spared from an attack. An officer grabbed a black child by the neck and shoved him into the patrol car, banging the child's head against the door frame. Black people bear the brunt of Lexington Police Department's illegal conduct. Lexington's former police chief, Sam Dobbins, who regularly spoke disrespectfully to black men, set in motion the aggressive enforcement of low-level violations. Dobbins left the department when recordings of him using other racial slurs were released. Officials told us that with Dobbins gone, so too was the problem. We found, however, that discriminatory practices he initiated continued unabated. Lexington officers frequently tase, punch, and beat black people without justification, while we identified no such use of force on white people. Low-level traffic violations that resulted in the arrest for black people yielded only warnings or citations for white people. The result? 98% of the people arrested for traffic offenses are black. This pattern of racial discrimination not only violates the law, it erodes the community's trust in law enforcement, the judicial system, and the government more broadly. Again, that's part of a Department of Justice report on Lexington, Mississippi. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNewZ.TV.